We all idolize Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward, but did you know their legendary 50-year marriage actually began as a scandalous, forbidden affair? Behind the velvet curtain of old Hollywood, the silver screen's greatest love stories survived on secret pacts, immense grace, and heartbreaking compromise. From Gary Cooper's hidden grief to Bing Crosby's shocking religious ultimatum, we're revealing the raw truths behind classic cinema's most unfaithful yet unbreakable marriages. Hit that subscribe button now as we uncover the beautiful, fractured reality of the Golden Age. Spencer Tracy and Louise Treadwell, the shadow behind the Golden Age. In 1923, screen legend Spencer Tracy married actress Louise Treadwell, a union that blessed them with 2 children, John and Susie. But tragedy struck early when John was diagnosed with profound deafness. Haunted by the irrational guilt that his son's condition was divine punishment for his own sins, Tracy fractured. By 1933, he drifted away from the family home, embarking on high-profile affairs with leading ladies like Loretta Young, Myrna Loy Joan Crawford, and Ingrid Bergman. Though he later reconciled with Louise, the warmth of a conventional marriage was gone forever. Then came Katharine Hepburn. Meeting on the set of Woman of the Year 1942, they sparked a 26-year romance that became Hollywood's most famously guarded open secret. Bound by his strict Catholic faith and a deep-seated respect for his wife, Tracy refused to ever divorce. Louise remained steadfastly Mrs. Spencer Tracy. Meanwhile, Hepburn loved him from a dignified distance, living near his suite at the Beverly Hills Hotel. She bore witness to his darkest demons, once even waiting patiently in the hallway while he battled a drunken stupor inside. When Tracy passed away in 1967, Hepburn was by his side, yet she gracefully skipped his funeral out of respect for Louise. Days later, Hepburn phoned the grieving widow, gently suggesting they might finally be friends. Louise's quiet, devastating reply cut through decades of heartache. "Yes, I suppose so. But you see, I thought you were only a rumor." Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward, the fractured fairy tale. For half a century, Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward stood as Hollywood's gold standard for enduring love. Yet behind the cinematic romance lay a complex, deeply human reality. Their legendary union actually began in the shadows of an affair while Newman was still married to his first wife, Jackie Whitty. It was a beginning that left Newman haunted by a horrible guilt for abandoning his first family, a ghost that lingered long after the wedding bells rang in 1958. The Golden couple's toughest trial arrived 11 years later. While filming the iconic Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid 1969, Newman struck up an affair with journalist Nancy Bacon. The romance lasted nearly a year, eventually spilling onto the pages of the Hollywood tabloids and threatening to shatter their pristine image. Yet Woodward chose grace over divorce. She stayed, proving that their bond was forged in something deeper than Hollywood fantasy. In his posthumous memoir, Newman candidly confessed that their 50-year marriage survived only because they chose to weather mistakes and betrayals together. They remained fiercely devoted side by side until his passing in 2008, leaving behind a legacy not of a perfect marriage, but of a fiercely resilient one. Robert Mitchum and Dorothy Spence, the queen beats the femme fatale. Robert Mitchum and Dorothy Spence were teenage sweethearts who tied the knot in 1940, long before he became Hollywood's quintessential tough guy. Their decades-long journey was anything but a fairy tale. Mitchum's rebel lifestyle led to a highly publicized prison stint for marijuana possession alongside a relentless string of extramarital affairs. Yet through every storm, Dorothy stood like a fortress. The ultimate test of her resolve came in the sultry form of Hollywood's premier femme fatale, Ava Gardner. Consummated by her desire for the brooding actor, Gardner boldly phoned the Mitchum residence, demanding Dorothy step aside. "You've had him for 10 years, Gardner purred over the line. "Give someone else a chance." Dorothy didn't flinch. "What does Bob say?" she asked calmly. "He told me to ask you," Gardner replied. With the steel resolve that defined her, Dorothy delivered a devastating one-word knockout. "Fine, you've asked me, the answer is no." Gardner's pursuit withered, but the Mitchum marriage endured. Defying all Hollywood odds, Robert and Dorothy never divorced, remaining fiercely bound to one another for 57 years until his passing in 1997. Errol Flynn and Patrice Wymore, The Rogue's Final Act. In 1950, Hollywood's ultimate swashbuckler, Errol Flynn, met actress Patrice Wymore, leading to his third and final marriage. True to Flynn's chaotic nature, the wedding itself was a tabloid circus. Rumors swirled that several bridesmaids were the actor's former flames, and the groom was even slapped with a court summons for statutory rape right at his own reception. The real heartbreak arrived in 1957. Stricken by age and addiction, a fading Flynn abandoned Patrice for Beverly Adland, a teenager who was a mere 15 years old. The deeply scandalous affair shocked the nation, yet Patrice refused to grant Flynn a divorce, choosing instead a quiet separation that preserved her dignity. In 1959, the screen's greatest romantic rogue suffered a fatal heart attack while traveling in Vancouver with Adland. He died as he lived, courting scandal, but legally, he was still Patrice's husband. Decades later, looking back at the wreckage of the man she loved, Patrice offered a poignant epitaph that only a classic Hollywood wife could give. He was just a little lost boy. Gary Cooper and Rocky Balfe, The Price of the High Noon Romance. In 1933, the screen's ultimate American hero, Gary Cooper, married New York socialite Veronica Rocky Balfe. While Cooper projected a stoic, wholesome image on the silver screen, his private life was a whirlwind of infidelity. The most shattering fracture occurred in 1948 on the set of The Fountainhead, where the 47-year-old star fell into a passionate, high-stakes affair with his 22-year-old co-star, Patricia Neal. It quickly became Hollywood's worst-kept secret. The romance took a tragic, irreversible turn when Neal became pregnant, and under intense pressure to protect Cooper's image, underwent an abortion, a heartbreaking choice that haunted her for the rest of her days. By 1951, the emotional wreckage drove Cooper and Rocky into a formal separation. During his 3 years away from home, the dashing actor drifted into yet another legendary romance with his High Noon co-star, Grace Kelly. Yet through it all, Rocky steadfastly refused to grant a divorce. In 1953, perhaps seeking redemption or simply weary of the storm, Cooper returned home. He reconciled with Rocky, and she remained devotedly by his side, anchoring his life until he succumbed to cancer in 1961. It wasn't a perfect marriage, but it was an enduring one, proving that behind the cinematic ideals of masculinity lay a deeply human story of temptation, immense grief, and ultimate survival. Kirk Douglas and Ann Bidens, 65 Years of Grace Under Fire. In 1953, Hollywood's quintessential tough guy, Kirk Douglas, met German-born publicist Ann Bidens while he was actually engaged to someone else. Romance sparked, leading to a quick elopement in Las Vegas in 1954. During the ceremony, Ann's struggle with English led to a hilarious accidental slip of the tongue. She mispronounced her vows, promising to take Kirk as her awful wedded husband. In hindsight, that linguistic mishap proved to be a strangely prophetic omen. Matrimony did little to tame the Spartacus star's notoriously rampant infidelity. Decades later, Douglas would brazenly detail his high-profile conquests, including affairs with screen sirens Rita Hayworth and Patricia Neal, in his brutally honest autobiography. Facing the glaring spotlight of his betrayals, Anne responded with a fierce European pragmatism. She famously remarked that she could easily forgive what her husband confessed to her directly, but she refused to tolerate hearing about his indiscretions from the lips of outsiders. Through unmatched resilience and absolute devotion, Anne steadied the ship. Defying every cynical expectation in show business, they remained fiercely united for over 65 years until Kirk passed away in 2020 at the incredible age of 103. Theirs was not a textbook fairy tale, but a masterclass in compromise, profound survival, and an unbreakable Hollywood partnership. Bing Crosby and Dixie Lee, The Cost of a Hollywood Virtue. In 1930, legendary crooner Bing Crosby married actress Dixie Lee, a union that looked like a picture-perfect Hollywood dream from the outside. However, behind closed doors, Dixie battled severe alcoholism, and by the mid-1940s, the marriage was fracturing. Enter Joan Caulfield Crosby's beautiful young co-star from Blue Skies. The two fell into a deeply serious affair, and a swept-away Crosby began actively contemplating the unthinkable for a devout Catholic star divorcing Dixie to marry Caulfield. Desperate for an ecclesiastical solution, Crosby traveled to New York in early 1946 to seek counsel from the immensely powerful Cardinal Francis Spellman. The Cardinal's response was swift-cutting and entirely grounded in the reality of post-war American pop culture. Referring to Crosby's Oscar-winning role in Going My Way, Spellman firmly declared, "Bing, you are Father O'Malley, and under no circumstances can Father O'Malley get a divorce." The message was crystal clear. A public divorce would not only devastate the Catholic Church, but completely shatter the wholesome, saintly image America had come to worship. Trapped by the weight of his own cinematic alter ego, Crosby chose his legacy. He abruptly ended the affair with Caulfield and quietly returned home to Dixie, remaining her legal husband until her tragic death from ovarian cancer in 1952. John Huston and Ricky Soma, the renegade blueprint of marriage. In 1950, Hollywood's legendary rogue director John Huston married the exquisite Italian-American prima ballerina Enrica "Ricky" Soma. It was his fourth walk down the aisle, and from the outset, the union defied every conventional American boundary. As the larger-than-life director of the Maltese Falcon spent years roaming the globe on far-flung movie sets, the immense physical distance inevitably gave way to an emotional chasm. Rather than tearing themselves apart through bitter legal warfare, however, the couple quietly engineered a sophisticated, unspoken arrangement. They simply lived entirely separate lives. While Huston was away in Europe and Africa, embarking on high-profile affairs and eventually fathering a child out of wedlock with actress Zoe Salas, Ricky chose her own path to fulfillment. Settling into a glamorous bohemian life in London, she struck up a deep romance with the British aristocrat John Julius Norwich, giving birth to a daughter of her own. Remarkably, despite both partners raising children born from other beds, neither Huston nor Ricky ever sought a divorce. They remained content to stay bound by name, honoring their loose but enduring partnership. This radically modern arrangement came to a sudden, devastating halt in 1969, when Ricky's life was cut tragically short by a car accident in France at just 39 years old. She passed away exactly as she had lived for nearly 2 decades, fiercely independent, yet legally Mrs. John Huston. Charles Laughton and Elsa Lanchester. The secret behind the curtain. In 1929, the brilliant British-American character actor Charles Laughton married Elsa Lanchester, the unforgettable actress who would later become immortalized as the Bride of Frankenstein. Together, they formed one of classic cinema's most eccentric and revered power couples. However, just 2 years into their marriage, a devastating crisis struck. Following a highly sensitive incident involving the police and a young man in a London park, Laughton broke down and confessed his homosexuality to his young wife. The psychological shock was so profound that Elsa suffered a psychosomatic reaction, becoming temporarily deaf for an entire week. Yet instead of filing for a scandalous divorce that would have utterly destroyed Laughton's rising Hollywood career, Elsa chose an extraordinary path of empathy and resilience. Overcoming her initial trauma, she quietly accepted her husband's private life, allowing him the freedom to pursue relationships with other men. They maintained a fiercely loyal partnership, frequently co-starring in cinematic masterpieces like Witness for the Prosecution, 1957. Defying the rigid societal norms of the mid-20th century, Charles and Elsa remained devotedly bound by name and art for 33 years until Laughton's passing from cancer in 1962. Theirs was an unconventional blueprint of love, proving that devotion can exist far outside the boundaries of tradition. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos. See you in the next one.